musician and all that stuff. Well, he notices Lewis is watching this, and he's upset. So he asks him, what do you think's going on in Little Rock? Well, Lewis's quotes made front page news the next day. He said, the way they're treating my people in the South, the government can go to hell. It's getting so bad a colored man hasn't got any country. He called President Eisenhower two-faced. He said he had no guts. And he was supposed to go to Russia at the time. He said, the people over there asking me what's wrong with my country, what am I supposed to say? Well, naturally, nobody, this is Uncle Tom Satchmo, nobody could believe he was saying this. Armstrong's own road manager, a white guy, Frenchy Tallery, he called the press and said, oh, no, Lewis was only, he didn't mean it, he's sorry he spat her off. Lewis called the press right back that day, and he said, I wouldn't take back a thing I've said. I've had a beautiful life over 40 years in music, but I feel the downtrodden situation the same as any other Negro. My parents and family suffered through all that old South, and things are new now. And Talleyrand and no prejudice newspaper can make me change it. What I've said is me. I feel that. My people, the Negroes, are not looking for anything. We just want a square shake. But when I see on television and read about a crowd in Arkansas spitting on a little colored girl, I think I have a right to get sore. Do you dig me when I say I have a right to blow my top over injustice? Well, some people stood next to Lewis. The black entertainers, the Eartha Kitt, Marian Anderson, Jackie Robinson, but predominant backlash was negative. This was a time when no entertainer, white or black, criticized the president, the government like this. But here's Louis Armstrong taking the stand, and people didn't know what to make of it. The syndicated white columnist Jim Bishop, he wrote, Lewis must have made a big hit in Russia because this was an American Negro telling the president off with scorn. When I returned from Europe, I was impressed with the enormity of damage Armstrong had done to the United States. He ended with, I checked the old newspaper files to see what Louis Armstrong had done for the people of his race in the past. I haven't found anything, and now I rise to ask the musician himself, what have you done for your people except hurt them? Reporters asked Lewis how did he respond, and Lewis said, Mr. Bishop's been so busy being a white man, he don't know the life of a colored man. And then he imparted his philosophy, I just want everyone to love everybody. But even in the black press, people did not stand by Lewis. Nat King Cole, who Lewis passionately defended in that interview I played earlier, he blasted Lewis. Adam Clayton Powell, Sammy Davis Jr. Lewis was really upset about Adam Clayton Powell. Lewis wrote in Ebony, when I made that statement, Congressman Adam Clayton Powell was interviewed over TV. He was asked about what I said. He told the TV reporter he didn't agree. Louis Armstrong isn't up on current events. Well, I may not be up on current events, but I'm up on head whipping. So, Lewis, he was smarter than people gave him credit for. And I've hit the year 1957. If the man lived for 14 more years, I could go on for 3 more hours, but I'm going to instead skip to 1965 and end with a little bit of music. The first backstory. March 7th, 1965, there was a famous march in Selma, Alabama, and 250 demonstrators were arrested. Black people were beaten by cops, and it was just a mess. Well, Lewis was in a hotel room in Denmark at the time watching this, and the reporters asked him, how do you feel? And Lewis said he got sick, and then he said, why don't you take part in these marches? Lewis responded, well, maybe I'm not in the front line, but I support them with my donations. But maybe that's not enough now. My life is music. They would beat me on the mouth if I marched, and without my mouth, I would not be able to blow my horn. Well, a newspaper reporter said, you really think you, Louis Armstrong, would get beat like that? And Lewis responded, they would even beat Jesus if he was black and marched. How is it possible that human beings could still treat each other that way? Hitler is dead a long time, or is he? Now, Lewis said these comments at a pretty crazy time in his life. He was just about to start a tour where he would crack the Iron Curtain, playing Prague and East Berlin and all these countries that had never seen him before or knew anything about him. But these countries knew about race relations in America, and once Louis Armstrong landed in these places, reporters were all over. What do you think about the South? What do you think about racism? What do you think? And Louis wouldn't talk. I got friends in the South, I have friends all over, I'm not talking about that, just come to my concert. And he wouldn't go into it. Well, I think Lewis knew that he could do more with his horn than he could with just his voice. And it's at this point that he brings the song back into his repertoire. What did I do to be so black and blue? Now, Lewis had originally recorded this in 1929. The song was written for the show Hot Chocolates, and in the show, it was sung by a dark-skinned black woman lamenting how she lost men to lighter-skinned black women. Well, Lewis recorded it in 1929 and erased any feminine connotations and made it the first protest song with lines like, I'm white inside, but that don't help my case, and my only sin is in my skin. I mean, this was dangerous stuff to be recorded by a black man in 1929, but it went over really well. It really endeared Lewis to the black community back then, and he performed the song for at least 25, 30 more years. But by the late 50s, Lewis had stopped performing almost altogether. There's about 2 versions that survived between 56 and 65. Each time he announces it as a request, and he does it pretty quickly. But all of a sudden, right after these quotes, this 1965 tour of the Iron Curtain, all of a sudden Black and Blue is back. And Lewis does it slower than ever, and when he sings, he barely smiles, and he makes a very important change in the lyrics. Instead of singing, I'm white inside, he sings, I'm right inside. And it's very deep stuff, and at the time in jazz, there was the new thing going on. It was free jazz, and it was very, very angry music. The young black artists were angry at racism and everything, and they were screaming on their horns, and screeching and all that stuff. Well, those musicians thought Lewis was old-fashioned, out of date, but the high notes he plays at the end of this are, to me, as angry, as wounded, and it's a cry. It's a cry at the end that just gets me.